Good morning, everyone. Okay, so this morning what I want to do is take on a very quick gamble through something called industrial symbiosis, which is part of the toolkit for delivering circular economy. I'm guessing most of you won't have heard of the organisation that I work for. Essentially, we're a small SME that's based in the centre of Birmingham, a place called the Jewellery Quarter. There's about 10 of us working there. If you have heard of the organisation, it's because of this programme called NISP, which was still to this day, is the world's first national industrial symbiosis programme that ran from 2005 to 2013. And I'll come on to what this concept of industrial symbiosis is shortly. That government project has allowed us to now sell this methodology and some of the tools that we use right around the world, including, again, something I'll come on to shortly, an economic approach that sort of looks at how we can match resources between businesses spatially and actually use it as an inward investment strategy. We also have a series of tools, again, which I'll mention shortly, which underpin the work we do. We have a not-for-profit organisation which allows us to work particularly in places like Africa. And again, in recognition of the work we've done over the last decade plus, we were asked to convene a resource efficiency working group for G7. So again, for a small business, we're actually getting out there and spreading the word. So that just gives you a flavour of where we're working right around the world. We're saying, you know, this is about things delivered locally, but on a global scale. And currently we have projects running in Canada, South Africa, Turkey, Israel, and the Netherlands. So I just want to start off by sort of briefly looking at this definition from the Circular Economy Package, a piece of European legislation and guidance which started taking form back in 2014 and is still is pretty much finished, but still elements being worked on in 2019. But this is sort of trying to create a framework for countries to essentially get their heads around this concept of not considering materials as waste. It's about them being a valuable resource that we should be looking at the potential to repair, reuse, refurbish and recycle and keep their value and keep them circulating around the economy, rather than this linear model that we see where we take, make and dispose of or burn in a waste to energy plant. This concept of industrial symbiosis, essentially what International Synergies does is that we either work with other organisations or ourselves establish networks of industries. And what we do is we work with those industries to understand the resources that they have in respect of raw material and utility inputs into their business, but also the wastes and the byproducts that they're producing as part of their day-to-day operations. Then what we do is we match them together such that one person's waste becomes someone else's valuable input into that process. Now, we use a facilitated model, where as independents we help businesses create these links and also get them or give them some assistance in getting over the barriers, be they technical, financial or legislative. We also work very closely with the regulators and work very closely with the waste reprocessing sector, because again they provide a valuable service in getting these resources in a form in which they can be input directly into another industrial process. This doesn't just work with waste materials, offcuts, byproducts or processes. This approach also works with energy, with water, with logistics in respect of empty vehicle movements that can be used by other businesses, sharing knowledge and expertise, and also processing capacity. So it's a very flexible approach. Each of these linkages that we're trying to create, they're all being set up with the idea of being a win-win. So both of the industrial partners that are involved both get a benefit, be that a cost reduction in respect of reduced disposal costs, or ideally a revenue for that waste material because someone else sees a value in it. And the receiving business is getting a cheaper or more cost-effective input into their business. So the idea is that these will stand alone on their own 2 feet as commercial viable projects. We deliver this activity through a number of means. We'll go out and visit businesses one-to-one, and then using some of the software tools will help them and identify the links and facilitate those links. But one of the really effective tools that we use is that we run these resource matching workshops, so essentially like speed dating for waste. So what you do is you bring 50 businesses into a room, get them very simply to sort of talk about the things that they're producing as waste, and also what would they like to conversely bring into their materials as a cheaper input. And then what you do is you create the matches there and then with the businesses sat around a table. And then through the process of the workshop, everybody sees each other's resources, and from a room full of about 50 business representatives, you can pretty much guarantee you'll get 300 to 400 of these matches. So it's a very, very simple, very, very effective way of getting businesses to get their heads around this idea of actually my waste could be someone else's valuable resource and input. And they work right around the world, so they work in varieties of cultures, languages, because ultimately people very much like to talk about themselves and talk about their businesses, and that's the basis of that workshop. Give you a couple examples beyond sort of straight and direct business-to-business opportunities. This is where that approach can be used in an inward investment context. So this was a project that was commissioned by Birmingham City Council, focusing on an area called Tyseley, which actually is an industrial zone that goes right back to the inception of the Industrial Revolution. So it's got businesses that have been in place since the 1700s, so going way back. But it's an area that's become fairly run down. It's got high levels of unemployment and deprivation. But what the council wanted to do was try and look at how they could actually increase the value of the area economically. So we did a study using this industrial symbiosis concept, and we looked at what matches could be formed between businesses over 3 different time frames. So what could be done now? So we looked at businesses in terms of their wastes and what they needed as inputs, and created matches between them, so things that could be delivered in the here and now, and using waste companies to actually make those potentials come true. We also looked at inward investment opportunities, so these were where there were resources but there was not a sink for them, or there wasn't a current home in the Tyseley district. So this was where the businesses we knew could take those resources and do something useful with them, but they weren't currently located in that area. So that essentially gives the local authority an inward investment opportunity. You can get those businesses in using more simplistic planning and financial incentives, and essentially provide them with some cheaper raw material inputs. And then finally, longer term, you're looking at resources that have a valuable element to them but need some innovative technology to extract that. So that's the innovation elements which you then feed directly into universities and academics. Again, similar basis, this is a project we did with Highways England, looking at their smart motorways projects. So this was piloted in the East Midlands. In essence, we looked at about 20 plus construction projects and where they could actually share resources between those projects. So waste being produced from one project, where could it actually go into another where they weren't currently using it in their own construction or demolition phases. So we demonstrated a potential with Highways England. There's £8.1 million worth of savings there, and a significant carbon reduction that could be achieved as well. The biggest issue with construction, as I guess you already know, is it's the scheduling. It's about having the materials available at the right time in the right technical quality. We actually also convene a infrastructure focus group with AECOM called MIROG, which is the Major Infrastructure Resource Opportunity Group, and that has representation from HS2, the Environment Agency, Flood Defences, Network Rail, Highways England, EDF Energy in respect of nuclear build, Thames Gateway, Heathrow, etc., etc. And again, that's convened to look at these major infrastructure projects with a concern on resource scarcity and how they can actually be clever about sharing resources from one major project to the next. So besides the economic drivers, there's legislative drivers as well, and environmental drivers. So this graph here is just showing, in respect of this, why should we be not entertaining this concept of waste? The IPCC, in respect of, has clearly said that we've got 12 years to basically take action to keep global warming below 1.5 degrees increase. And that sort of tipping point can actually, well, the most effective way of achieving that is through resource efficiency potential. So again, this sort of shows you the importance of trying to get this idea of waste out of our heads. Again, the stick element, legally, the European Waste Framework Directive has been amended last year, and that's now saying that they want to move away from this concept of waste management and transform to something that looks more like a sustainable material management framework. So again, that's about creating the framework in which businesses can rise to this challenge. And then the carrot, again, an independent study carried out for the European Union says that there's actually £73 billion worth of estimated cost reduction alone for businesses if they can actually grasp this resource efficiency challenge. And again, some of the work that we've been involved with is helping the European Union develop things like common standards. So we've just actually helped and chaired developing a industrial symbiosis standard, which again will allow this consistency of approach and consistency and commonality of language across member states. Okay, so drawing to a close. In terms of some of the tools that we use, we have a software platform called Synergy that underpins the work we do. In essence, that is a database and project management tool that businesses can use to store information on their resources, so it's a bit like an eBay for waste materials. The latest development on this now, it has actually some artificial intelligence in there. So where we used to use it as people working on industrial symbiosis projects, now businesses are going to be able to use this. And as you type in your inventory of waste, it's going to come up and suggest to you businesses that actually can use that. And then it will tell you where they're located close to you, along with some contact information. So this is actually going to give you the tools and make it easier for you to generate these matches such that your waste will stop being a waste, it will become someone else's valuable raw material input. And we're actually currently involved with 5 other companies developing a software tool for DEFRA. So this is making the current duty of care system and waste transfer notes, putting those into an electronic form. It was tried once with something called eDoc that didn't get very far. And this is the next generation. And now actually both Veolia and Suez are involved in some of these projects. But what ours is going to have is this artificial intelligence element in, and we're very much focusing on this waste enhancement. So as businesses use it and type in their waste to actually create the duty of care trail, it's actually going to suggest to them where they can try and keep their waste in the value chain rather than throwing it away in a hole in the ground. So just finally, again, this is just put up to re-emphasise the size of the prize for those businesses that actually want to grasp the mantle of thinking of their waste as a resource. So these were the achievements from the National Industrial Symbiosis Programme, all independently audited by DataBuild. But what I'm going to focus on really is there are significant financial as well as environmental and social gains to be had there. So we're very much trying to sell this on the concept of a smarter way to do business rather than something that's sort of got its focus purely on environmental and sustainability. Okay, thanks very much.